Chapter 94, Step 5, Admission. Fifth step. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. July 2025. The fifth step of ACA, Heart and Trauma. Before this, I had written everything. The fourth step, the inventory where needs to eat, lay before me on one page. But writing is one thing. Speaking aloud before another person, looking them in the eyes, is another. The fifth step is a confession, not ecclesiastical, not ritual. A confession before a living person, before a sponsor, before a therapist, before someone who will listen and not leave. The point is not absolution, so the point is to say aloud what was forbidden all your life. To break rule number 1, don't talk. I had already done this partly with ChatGPT, but it's not the same. I decided to confess about Artem and Even, not about my whole life, about him, about the kind of mother I was, about what stood behind the facade of I'm doing everything right, about the truth I knew but didn't say aloud, because saying it meant becoming what I'd sworn not to become. I sat down and began to speak. Artem. I hated him. Not always, not every day, but in moments when his scream hit the same spot inside where grandmother's scream lived, I hated him, with my whole body, as I hated grandmother at 5, standing in the corner on my knees, as I hated my mother who came to visit and hit, only now I hated my own child, and because of that, hated myself. I wished the worst on him, out of spite, out of despair, said, I'll die, and you won't have a mother. I wanted to do this to spite him, the most terrible thing you can do to a child, the way it was done to me. I felt envy toward my own child for having parents, both of them, which I never had. He didn't appreciate it, as no child does for whom parents are a given, not a miracle, and I watched and envied, and hated myself for the envy, and hated him for being given what I was not. I didn't play with him. Not because I didn't want to, I didn't know how. Motherhood was a project, work, a task to be completed, feed, walk, put to bed, drive to a play date, resolve a conflict, schedule therapy. I did everything by instruction and nothing from the heart, because the heart was closed, because I didn't know how to love. Not him, not Vanya, not myself. I gave from a deficit, the way I gave to everyone in my life, from an empty pocket, from a wrung-out body, from a robot that has functions instead of feelings. I screamed at him. In response to his screaming, couldn't hold back, turned into a 7-year-old girl, desperate, without empathy, without resources, screamed at the wall when he cried for hours, was emotionally inconsistent, loving 1 minute and frightening the next, hit his bottom, forced him to lie on the floor by strength when he attacked, showed him, through my behavior every day, what a victim looks like, what isolation looks like, what a person who doesn't know what joy is looks like. I drank in front of him, talked about death in front of him, told him horrible details of my life, the way grandmother told me, and knew I shouldn't, but couldn't stop, because inside lived a part that desperately wanted someone to see her pain, even a child, even an 8-year-old boy who wasn't coping himself. I threw him out of the house, once. He was 6 or 7, said, "Leave if you don't like it," in grandmother's words, in grandmother's voice. I was 5 when they said that to me, and I couldn't imagine I'd ever say it to my child, but I did. I said all this aloud, at the 5th step, before another person, without justifications, without explanations, but I tried to simply, here's what I did. Here's the kind of mother I was. Here's the truth. Silence after. Not awkward, heavy, like air after a thunderstorm. I didn't run. For the first time, I didn't run from the truth about myself. didn't hide behind perfectionism, didn't make a plan for improvement, didn't run into functioning, just sat with what I'd said, with who I'd been. This was not catharsis. There were no tears of cleansing. There was no relief. It was a quiet, heavy moment, like placing on the table a stone you'd carried in your pockets for 40 years. It lies there. You see it. Everyone sees it. It hasn't gone anywhere, but you're no longer carrying it alone. Sponsor Devin said afterward, "The fifth step is not about forgiveness. It's about stopping carrying the secret alone. The secret makes you sick. Truth spoken aloud makes you free. Not immediately, not completely, but it begins." But the fifth step is not only about wrongs. Truth includes the other side too, that I always made up first. Always told him I love you, that it's a wave. The anger passes, the love stays. That I made surprises for him, that I always fought for him and even won 2 lawsuits. That I put him to bed every evening, lying beside him. That never, never did I wish him dead. That I loved him unconditionally. That I chose him every time. Both truths, the one where I'm a bad mother and the one where I'm a mother who didn't give up, exist simultaneously. The fifth step is about holding both, not choosing one, not hiding the other, but saying, "Here I am. Here is everything I did, bad and good, without a filter, without a corset, aloud." I said it, and didn't die, and the world didn't collapse, and no one took the child away, and grandmother's voice, which all my life said, "You're a bad mother," went silent for a second, not forever, for a second, but in that second, in that silence after truth, I felt for the first time, you can be imperfect and not be destroyed for it. Vanya. After the confession about Artem, I thought the worst was behind me. Turned out, no, the worst is not what you did to your child. The worst is what you did to the person who was beside you for 12 years, whom you turned into a mirror of all your dead. I sat down and began to speak. I used him. From the very beginning, I manipulated him. Threatened divorce, not because I wanted to leave, but so he'd get scared and change. Said, "I'm better without you." Words I chose specifically to wound. I tried to remake him for 12 years. Books, therapies, lists, ultimatums. I criticized his contribution to the relationship, devalued what he did, said he wasn't enough as he was. I wanted him to love me the way a perfect father would, the one I never had, even though he's a husband, the way a mother would, who died, the way a grandfather would, if he knew how. I hung the expectations of all my dead on a living person, and hated him for not being able to bear them. I drank to sleep with him, because sober I couldn't, and I didn't talk about it. I shifted onto him the responsibility for my pain, for my depression, for my inability to feel. I was a victim, and that too was manipulation, only I didn't see it. I blamed him for my difficulties instead of taking responsibility for my feelings. I demanded he guess what I needed, and when he didn't guess, hated him for it. I wished him dead, several times, from despair and resentment. Said it inside, which is worse than aloud, because hatred that isn't spoken rots, like the hatred for my mother rotted, like the hatred for grandmother rotted. And he got up every morning and went to work so we could live. Spent nearly a year with Artem as a single father. Sent money to my grandfather. His love was hidden behind action, like mine, like grandfather's. We all hid love, each in our own way, each from fear. For 12 years, I lived with a person who was a mirror of my entire family, and for 12 years hated him for what he reflected. Grandfather, cold and generous. Grandmother, clenched teeth, bulging eyes, eternal dissatisfaction. Mother, could vanish, go silent, stop seeing. I didn't hate him. I hated what he showed me about me. Here is what I did. Here is who I was, as a wife. Here is the truth I hid for 12 years behind 30 pages of grievances against him. Grandmother. With grandmother, it was the hardest, because grandmother has been gone for a long time, and because I needed to make 2 movements in opposite directions simultaneously, ask her forgiveness and try to forgive her. I hated her my whole life. Not was offended, hated. The kind of hatred that lives in the bones, in clenched teeth, in a throat that tightens every time you hear a scream. I carried this hatred like a stone in my pocket, 41 years, and the stone grew. It didn't shrink from distance, from another country, from her death. It grew. And the truth is that she took me at 6 months. From an alcoholic mother, took me and raised me. She taught me honesty, generosity, courage. She taught me to get up when I fell. She gave me the gold medal, Kaspersky, Amazon, a 6-figure salary, because not good enough was the only motivator she knew and the only one that worked. She raised the phoenix from ashes, from nothing, from a 6-month-old infant without a mother. Did I forgive? I don't know. A monk said, "What matters is to forgive not the person, but the feelings. The feelings caused by that person. Only when they pass, then healing. My feelings about grandmother are strong, very. Both truths, the one where she is the tormentor and the one where she is the savior, exist simultaneously, as with Artem, as with me. She beaten and raised, expelled and rescued from hell, humiliated and taught not to give up. Here she is, here is everything she did, bad and good, without a filter, without armor." And I hated her for so many years and never once said thank you. That's my truth. That's what I ask forgiveness for. Grandfather. His love was hidden, like mine, like Vanya's. I remembered how he sewed bags, how I straightened nails beside him, how I sawed pieces of wood, how I hacked up his window trim with an axe at 4. He didn't scold. He was cold and generous, like Vanya would be later. His love was like breathing, invisible but there, and only when I thought I might lose him did I feel how much air he'd been giving. Didn't love loudly, didn't protect loudly, he did it quietly. He was not blood related, but he took me and raised me. They told him, "You're nobody, you have no right, she's not your biological granddaughter," but he kept going. I said all of it, not in one sitting, in parts, to Vanya, in a letter, a list of gratitudes that I read aloud, to grandmother, through a ritual, to grandfather, with a phone call, not perfectly, not beautifully, not the way the books about the 5th step describe, but aloud, before a living person, or before a dead one, but still aloud.